Great Expectations is the 14th episode of the 5th season of The Golden Girls. This is directed by Terry Hughes, and as always, there will be spoilers from now as I go through the episode and share some thoughts. It's a good episode, maybe not the funniest, but definitely some good food for thought, particularly with Blanche. It starts off with Blanche dressed as a cowgirl. She looks wonderful. Love the outfit. She's going to an authentic Texan barbecue with a real cowboy. Unfortunately, the cowboy gets an injury and he can't go. And Blanche begins to worry that she can't date men of a certain age. And she's not feeling very great. So Rose invites everybody to a positive thinking group. And they go to the group, and I have to say it's ridiculous and I love it. It would drive me crazy. Everybody refers to everybody else, well, they say to everybody else in a kind of chant, "You're special," and it would just drive me absolutely insane. But it was quite a funny scene, and Dorothy is told that she's very negative, and I realise I'm probably more like Dorothy than any of the other characters with my outlook. So I had some personal takeaways from this, absolutely. And Dorothy actually wrote down all of the negative thoughts that came into her head. And I love that as an exercise. I might actually do that if there's enough paper, because it's not necessarily in that moment about saying, how do I get rid of this negative thought? It's just about assessing just how negative you actually are. I think I am a pessimist. I know I'm a pessimist. I'm a glass half empty kind of person because I always want to prepare for the worst. And I know you're supposed to hope for the best and prepare for the worst, but I forget about the hoping for the best part of it often. So I actually had something to take away from that, and I might actually do that exercise. I think that could be really, really helpful. And if anybody else decides to do it, I'd love to know how you found it. So definitely a good takeaway there for me. Blanche is having a decent time. She finally decided to date Stephen, who is an older man, and they're having a great time. She realizes that actually if she allows herself to take those chances and date an older man, it could actually be really great. And then we find out he's had a heart attack. And I never really thought about this before with Blanche. I always just thought that Blanche liked younger men because she was Blanche. But she explains, and I think this is a really, really thought-provoking scene, that committing to somebody of an older age is a risk. She lost George and she won't do it again. And that does make sense. If you date somebody who's older than the men Blanche usually dates, they are, let's face it, closer to the end of their life. In theory, a young person can obviously die as well, but in theory, there's more of a chance of an older person dying, and I never really thought about that with Blanche. I just thought she liked younger men because she was Blanche, and I thought that was really quite thought-provoking, and I think, imagine, there are people who can relate to Blanche's outlook, and if you have lost a husband the way Blanche has, I imagine the thought of getting into a relationship where that potential for that to happen again is quite high would be a really, really scary thought. And as Blanche says, she doesn't want to put herself through it again. And it's genuinely quite an emotional and very eye-opening moment. But Blanche does eventually realise she can't let that fear stop her from enjoying the now and finding happiness with somebody. So she does eventually go to the hospital, and I thought it was very obvious what was happening, but it was very, very funny. She goes into the hospital room and there's a woman there crying. And this woman is his wife. And as soon as she said that, I realised what was happening, because Blanche says, he told me his wife had whatever she said. And the wife immediately goes to the bedside, pulls back the curtains and starts shouting at the man in the bed. And I thought it was very, very obvious that obviously wasn't Stephen, but it was funny. It played out well. And Blanche finally goes up to Stephen, and she starts to say all of the right things, and Stephen has to stop her. He's getting back with his ex. She was there when he went to the hospital. She took the risk of being with somebody older, and she was there for him. And Blanche realizes the big takeaway here is about not having those missed opportunities. And Blanche also said something in the hospital I thought was really interesting. She said, if I don't leave, I'm going to get left. And that's why she always leaves. She doesn't want to take these risks. Blanche is obviously so scared of being left, whether it's because somebody leaves her or somebody dies. And I mean, that's a pretty real fear for many people, but it's interesting to see Blanche confessing so much in one episode. And it really helps to highlight the way she behaves. She's always jumping from one man to the next. She's always trying to go after younger men. And this episode basically explains exactly why she does that. And I think also partly she's just attracted to younger men. But I think it's really interesting for the development of Blanche's character, or at least for helping us as viewers to understand why she behaves the way she does. And I think they did a really great job with it. I learned a lot as well about myself and the fact that I'm quite like Dorothy, and the fact that I might have a few too many negative thoughts on an average day. So for me, an interesting takeaway, and I think I will try and do that exercise of writing down every negative thought. And I think the biggest takeaway for us all is that you can't worry about what might happen because you're going to miss out on the good things that could happen. So all things considered, a pretty great episode, great expectations. It's a solid episode of The Golden Girls.